all the distinguished members of the Foreign Policy Association. Vice President, thank you very much for showing me this piece of jewelry here in New York. And dear friends and colleagues, for all those of you that are wondering what is the result of the game tonight, I'm very sorry for keeping you away from that. It is a great honor, really, to be here today to receive this medal from an institution that was founded precisely with the mission to achieve a just peace and that has been working for more than a century, and we can feel history in this place, to develop informed opinion on international relations and global issues. Eleanor Roosevelt, one of the incorporators of your institution, said that we must speak of peace, we must believe in peace, and we must work of peace. And more than a century later, since those words, it's more necessary than ever to do it. And I want tonight to speak to you of peace, because I believe in peace, and I work for peace. The world, as you were recalling, I said, is becoming more complex every day. And the challenges we face seem to be accumulating. New inequalities, such as inequality in the face of climate risk, and they are adding to all inequalities that persist, like ongoing social inequalities. But none of us who are here today who dedicate our interests to international politics, dialogue, diplomacy, global progress, do so because the task is easy. It is not. We do it because overcoming these difficulties is a horizon of hope that we cannot forsake. In a world where our main challenges, climate change, global security, the effects of pandemic, energy crisis, transcend borders, the response to those challenges can only transcend borders also. In a world where our greatest opportunities and strengths, science, culture, economic, technological progress, the emerging global consciousness, cross borders, knowing how to harness them require us to speak the language of humanity, both one and diverse, that your institution expresses so well. Let us not fool ourselves. Cooperation, internationalism, multilateralism are not an obligation. And unfortunately, today there are plenty of factors who prove this. Cooperation, multilateralism are a necessity, and the only way we want to continue advancing on this path of peace, of understanding, of joint progress that the international order presents. And that is the conviction that guides the Spanish international policy, a new foreign policy that seeks to contribute actively to these global efforts, standing shoulder to shoulder with our allies, partners, and friends, playing an active role to address issues of common concern. From defending the United Nations Charter in conflict zones such as Ukraine and the Middle East, to advocating for a state of Palestine and a two-state solution in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, Spain's foreign policy is one of principled and consistent leadership. We stand for human rights and international law, whether in Kiev, in Gaza, or in Beirut. We know quite well that insecurity and disillusionment fuel the fear that nourishes extremism and narrow nationalism. But we don't have to step back. We must move forward. Rather than retreating into isolationism and nationalism, rather than closing borders, our new foreign policy advocates for deeper engagement with the world. And that means reinforcing the European project, upholding democracy, human rights, and the rule of law, defending multilateralism and the United Nations and its bodies, like UNRWA, This doctrine is reflected in Spain's increased diplomatic presence, whether through our consistent support for Ukraine's sovereignty or our leadership in advocating for a two-state solution in the Middle East as the only way to achieve a definitive and lasting peace in the region. Spain's foreign policy is clearly engaged with the values of our society. Our role within international institutions, from the European Union to the United Nations, reflects this commitment to using diplomacy as a force of progress and stability. Spain's new active foreign policy is also visible in the efforts to strengthen multilateralism, particularly through its engagement with the plural South, a term that better reflects the diversity and dynamism of the global South. Spain sees these regions as natural partners in the defense of multilateralism and the promotion of a fairer, more effective international order. Whether through our ties with Latin America, Africa, and Asia, Spain is committed to building relationships that can address shared global challenges. And this international commitment is about principles, but it's not just about principle. It's about facts. In the last 3 years, Spain has hosted the NATO summit in July 2022 in Madrid, a historical meeting that took place in a very difficult moment for Euro-Atlantic security, and during which the allies we decided to invite Finland and Sweden to become members of the alliance, and we managed to adopt the Madrid strategic concept. Spain also held a successful presidency of the EU Council in the second half of last year, during which we achieved significant progress, such as the Migration and Asylum Pact, the opening of accession negotiations for Ukraine, and the EU CELAC Summit. We passed a historic cooperation law in February 23 with broad social and political consensus that enshrines in law the commitment to reach 0.7 of our GDP on development aid every year. And we are leading efforts for peace, for the Palestinians, for the Israelis, for the Middle East, and in favor of the two-state solution, with 2 meetings held in Madrid in the last 4 months, attended by foreign ministers from European and Arab Islamic countries. We are key in supporting the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and freedom of Ukraine. This month of October, we held the United Nations International Conference of Victims of Terrorism in Vitoria, in our country. And yesterday, in Barcelona, Barcelona became the capital of global diplomacy because we were hosting the annual ministerial meeting of the Union for the Mediterranean, the only organization in the world in which Israel and Palestine sits on equal footing. And also, our country today has the largest representation of Spaniards in European and international institutions in our history. The EU High Representative, the President of the European Investment Bank, the NATO Secretary General's Special Envoy to the Southern Flank, the High Representative of the Alliance of Civilization in the United Nations. In the last 3 years, 2 Spaniards have held both the so important today UN peacekeeping mission in Lebanon, UNIFIL, and the NATO advisory mission in Iraq. And soon another Spaniard will become the first executive vice president of the new European Commissions. These are well-deserved appointments that reflect the quality of our representatives, but are also an expression of Spain's growing commitment and influence in the concert of nations, the greatest in our recent history. A commitment that will continue in the coming years. In 2025, next year, the 4th Financing for Development Conference of the United States, of the United Nations, will be held in Sevilla and will be the first to take place in over 10 years. And in 26, Spain will be hosting the Ibero-American Summit by consensus of the 22 Ibero-American countries. Because Spain, with the Latin American countries, together with Portugal and Andorra, we are a community and we have a vision of the world. There is a way of being in the world truly Ibero-American, and our global common language, the Spanish, is a key part of that, a language spoken by 500 million native speakers. This commitment with multilateralism is now more necessary than ever, because in our current times marked by unprecedented interconnectedness, we found ourselves paradoxically very divided. The scourge of hate speech, amplified by digital platforms, threatens the very fabric of our society. It targets the most vulnerable, migrants, minorities, women, individuals of diverse orientations or beliefs. And this is not just a violation of human dignity, but an assault on the pluralistic, inclusive societies that we strive to build. The conflicts we are witnessing in the Middle East or in Ukraine has exacerbated the hate speech and disinformation. They are weapons that can shatter social cohesion and fuel the fires of conflicts. They directly threaten the foundation of our shared values. Certain political actors, driven by a thirst of power, have chosen to weaponize disinformation. They spread lies with impunity, distorting reality to fit their narratives. Every issue, no matter how complex, is reduced to a simplistic battle in an endless cultural war. And these merchants of division and hate see everything through the lens of conflict. Climate change, a war of industry. Immigration, a war on national identity. Gender equality, a war on traditional values. International law, a war on sovereignty. This cynical approach poisons our public discourse and erodes the foundations of rational debate, and is the coordinating and threatening action of extremism trying to divide societies for simple political gains. These issues are critical to understanding the future of international relations in the coming years, because a state's foreign policy is increasingly conditioned by the troubling dynamics that affect our divide our societies. We are not strangers to this phenomenon in Europe, in the European Union, where far-right, Eurosceptic forces are gaining ground. The recent elections to the European Parliament are a case in point of how these forces can shape the narrative and the European agenda even when they don't achieve majorities in the institution. Not only when they are vocally ultranationalistic, but also when they adopt a milder, more acceptable looking localism. They say to citizens, why worry about the world's problems when you have so many at your own at home? Why should the suffering of others in very far places concern you? There is no other way to say it. These nativist narratives are a danger to our national interests, however much they may portray themselves as its champions, because when these narratives permeate society, they can seriously curtail the government's leeway to act in the international arena. And it is only in the international arena where some of the society's most existential challenges, global challenges, can be addressed. Climate change, pandemics, artificial intelligence, nuclear proliferation, and of course, war. That's the reason behind our new foreign policy, to strengthen the commitment and international presence of Spain. That is the goal of our new foreign policy that showcases the best values of our society to the world: peace, justice, dialogue, and cooperation to address the global challenges we face. I believe in and I work for an active foreign policy, a vocal foreign policy that revolves around a firm defense of international law and international humanitarian law, the same values that gave meaning to this association and that we all share and we honor and respect its legacy. In our lifetime, towards a world free from violence and injustice, we must do our part on the journey. One more day, one more commitment, one step forward, one step closer. Again, it is an honor to have received this medal, and it is an honor to share this part of that journey with all of you. Thank you.